Hi everyone, welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Thursday, it's May 23rd, 2024, and this is episode 284. My name's Carol, my Ravelry name is Knits and Pearls, and I live east of Vancouver in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, Canada. I hope you're all doing well, that you've had a good couple of weeks since we last spoke. I've had a great couple of weeks, very productive too. So I have lots of things to share with you today, some knitting and some spinning and some cross stitch. So I hope you will grab yourself something to drink, maybe a project to work on, and settle in with me for a little while. I am channeling Nancy of the Knit Sip Happy podcast today and enjoying a glass of wine. This is Stoneleigh from New Zealand, which is one of my favorite wines. And Cameron doesn't like it. It's too grapefruity for him, so I get the whole bottle to myself, although I will not be drinking it all today. They say don't drink alone. He's away overnight, but I'm with all of you, so I'm not alone. Cheers, everyone. I just love it. Nice fruity, citrusy white. So I had intended to record this afternoon, and I was going to show you my new grandma mug that I got on Mother's Day, but I postponed it until now. It's about exactly 6 o'clock. For the best of reasons. This morning I received a text from a friend who lives about half hour closer to Vancouver, and she and another mutual friend were going to be here shopping today and asked if I'd like to join them for lunch. And of course I said yes. We haven't seen each other for ages. We usually get together with our husbands. The 6 of us get together usually for dinner once or twice a year, and we didn't last year. It just didn't work out, so we just had the most wonderful afternoon. We had a great lunch, and then we did a little bit of shopping in those little shops in our downtown area. So I've just gotten home, changed into something a little bit cooler because it's gotten quite warm over the course of the afternoon. And thought I would see if I could get this episode recorded before I lost the light. Speaking of light, I'm not exactly sure how good it's going to be. I feel like I'm quite pale and blown out at the moment. I have a ring light over here, and I have sun coming in the window over here, which may creep closer to me as the episode goes on, but it's what I have to work with, so it's going to have to do. Before I start talking knitty and yarny stuff, just a reminder, there are, well, I guess it's a knitty and yarny thing anyway, there are a couple of make-alongs taking place in the Ravelry group. There is the year-long chatter thread Smash the Stash, and then also a quarterly make-along, which will wrap up at the end of June, called Accessorize It. If you think you might be interested in taking part in either or both of those, head on over to the A Stitch in Time podcast Ravelry group and check out the first post of each of the pertinent threads, and that'll tell you everything you need to know. I'd also intended to catch up on all the comments in both of those make-along threads before I recorded this afternoon, but that didn't happen either. I spent, from the time I heard from my friend till when I left, I spent that time, well, obviously getting ready to go, but also getting ready to record. And so I don't think that I will have done that by the time this episode goes live, which will probably be tomorrow, but I will promise I will catch up very soon. I am, I think, pretty well all caught up on YouTube comments, but those Ravelry boards, I just find it hard to keep up. Anyway, let's talk projects. I finished my Belvrade hap, and I am so happy about that. I started this project, I think it was, I didn't write it down. I might have written it down in last week's notes. I didn't. Pardon me, I started it ages ago, like I want to say 2018. I'm pretty sure it was around June 2018. And this is a shawl by Rita Taylor. She designed it for Blacker Yarns, and I used the Blacker Yarns Samite Silk Blend in the Sunless Hours colorway. So it's a half, and the first step is to knit this garter stitch triangle. That took me forever. I believe, if I remember correctly, I think you cast on here and work your way out. And it was just, you know, boring garter stitch. So that took me a long time. Then the next step was to pick up along the two edges of the triangle and work this lace pattern. And that didn't take me too long once I got going on that, because that was really interesting. But then the final step was to do an applied border. You can see it there. Oh, there, that you can see without the sun glaring on it. And I think it took me 2 years between finishing the triangle and doing the lace, and then it probably took me another couple of years at least to get to this point. And you know, it took me less than 2 weeks to knit it. I decided to do 2 16-row repeats a day. And some days I did more and some days I did less. But you know, I finished it in no time. And I'm just kicking myself that it took me 6 years to knit this little, what's essentially a one skein shawl. So I had 2 skeins of this yarn, and I just dipped into the second skein just a little bit. So it's just over a one skein shawl, although you definitely need the 2 to knit it. For some reason, I think it's because of the photos that were included with it, I thought this was going to be much larger than it is, but it's really fairly small. Again, we're going to struggle with lighting because of the time of day. I think that's pretty good, you can see there. And I will just bring this closer. I think you can get a good look at it there. So yeah, it's a great size for, you know, doing this, which is how I wear a lot of my triangular shawls. Most of them are small. I can't. This one's stuck back here. There you go. So, you know, I will probably wear it as a scarf like this, but it's also is large enough to just put over your shoulders if you'd like to. I think it's about 6 feet from wingtip to wingtip, and about 2 feet 24 inches, I think it is, in depth. It's very blocked out, very similar, I think, to what the pattern schematics were. And there is, on the same pattern, there are instructions for a larger shawl, and they also show it in a 2-color version. And now, because I have so much of this yarn left over, I'm thinking, well, should I make, actually it's a 3-color version. And I'm like, well, should I order 2 more skeins in 2 different colors and knit this again with the contrasting colors? And then I'm thinking, are you crazy? It took you 6 years to knit this. Maybe just hold on to that other. It is a discontinued yarn, but there is still some on the Blacker Yarns website. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. It's not a cheap yarn, so I don't want to just buy it without a specific project in mind. But it is a lovely yarn. It's a little bit rustic. You know, it's not next to skin super soft. It's a little scratchy. So, you know, I'm not sure what I would make out of it. But I do love how the shawl turned out. I can't get it all. I'm going to cover up my face, see if I can get more of it in the picture. could kind of see through that, so I think you got a pretty good look at it. Anyway, thrilled, absolutely thrilled to have this project done, and kind of embarrassed that it took me this long. I'm just gonna lean out of frame here and just drape it over the ironing board that the phone is sitting on. So just a second. I don't want to crinkle it up. I need to still take some FO pics. Speaking of knitting, I am wearing Etta by Allison Green. This was knit from Barocco Summer Sesame in the Garden colorway, and that is number 5261. And I knit this last June, and I think I only got a chance to wear it a few times, 2 or 3 times. And when I came home, it's really warm in here, and I thought I need to change out of what I was wearing and put something a little cooler on. And I went downstairs with another to pull out a different kind of summer sweater, and I'd forgotten about this one. And when I saw it, I thought, oh, this would be perfect. So I'll just stand up so you can see it. It's just a really cute circular yoke sweater, as you can see. I think I might have added a little bit of length to the sleeves. I feel like I think the pattern says to just separate for the sleeves and then pick up and do a row, and I think I just knit, I knit a little bit more if I remember right. And then it's got a lace yoke, and all the increases are built into this lace pattern. So really fun yarn, color changing yarn, and it's a cotton blend. But yeah, I'm really was kind of a happy rediscovery. Do you ever do that? Knit something and put it away, and then you go to, next sweater season and you open the drawer and you're like, oh yeah, I finished that sweater last year. I get to wear it now. I tend to often be right on the verge of the wrong season when I finish something, because I get inspired to knit, say, a wool sweater in, September, and then I may not finish it until March or April, and then it's kind of too warm for it. So I think I will definitely get some more use out of this in the next couple of months. All right, works in progress. I have 3 pairs of socks that you've seen before. I'm looking because I've got the finished socks here, and then my sock project bags over here. So let's see, what did I write down first in my notes? My weekend socks. Okay, let's show those to you. So I need this sock and this bag. This is a bag I got when I did, I think it was a lace yarn club, and I don't think there's a label to say where it's from, no. But what's really neat is it has these little grommets on it. Oh boy, that sunlight's definitely blowing out if I'm too close to the camera, isn't it? These grommets, so that if you had a lace shawl, you could store it by putting your needle ends through each hole, each grommet, and that way when you pull it out of your bag, you're not going to lose stitches off your shawl. Anyway, this pair of socks is my May personal sock yarn club pair. And I did show you the yarn last week. It's might end up having to close the blind there. This is from Gauge Dye Works. Yeah, this is gonna be challenging. Gauge Dye Works, this is a Canadian company. This is their classic merino twist. Yeah, classic merino twist fingering, which is an 80% superwash merino and 20% nylon fingering weight blend. And this colorway is called Weekend, and it's the round trip version. And as I showed you last week and mentioned, this yarn is dyed, it starts with one color on one end of the skein, and then it fades into the middle, and then from the middle it fades out again. And so you can, if you work something from the one end of the ball, you can start at the other end of the ball and have a relatively matching something. In this case, a pair of socks. So there's very little red left here, but you can see from my finished sock that the skein started with red, worked its way down to this gray section, and then down to this bluey green. I did a German short row heel and my usual rounded toe. This is 64 stitches on a 2mm needle, which is my usual. It's a little bit looser. I probably could have done 60 stitches because it just feels just that little bit loose, but it'll be fine. I love how it knit up. As I mentioned last episode, I'm pretty sure I put this in for maize yarn because, oh, I'll be right back. I have a feeling that's my husband. He's probably off work. He's working out of town and calling me. Be right back. Yes, as I suspected, that was my husband, so I'll give him a call back later. So I don't remember what I was talking about. Gauge Dye Works, weekend. Oh yes, I'm pretty sure the reason I chose this yarn for May was because we had our Victoria Day long weekend last weekend, and I thought it was rather fitting. So I did work on these socks in the car on the way there and the way back, I think, if I remember right. Yes, I think I got to the point where I needed to put the heel in on the way back, and then I put it down and picked up another project, which I'll show you in a second. But yes, love this yarn, love how this sock turned out. And then as mentioned, I am ready to do the heel in sock number 2. Yeah, I'm gonna have to keep this right out of the direct sunlight. So they are not 100% identical, you can see that, but they are a close match, which is what they're meant to be. And yeah, love this yarn. Very, very happy with how this pair is turning out. And with just the heel and the foot to go, it's May 23rd, so I've got another just over a week. I shouldn't have any trouble finishing these off before June. And I've got June's yarn across the room, so maybe I will open it while I record, and I'll get a sneak peek of what's coming up for June's yarn. I have absolutely no idea, which is awesome, because I thought when I put all these away, I sort of thought I was going to end up remembering what I had put for each month, and for the most part I haven't. I thought I would go ahead and just insert this video here. This is June's Personal Sock Yarn Club yarn. So I thought I would give you a preview because it will be a little ways into June by the time I record again. So let's find out together what's in this bag. Try not to creakle too much. I know it can be very loud on the ears. I love this yarn. This time it's a commercial sock yarn. It's from Lang, and the lighting is terrible. Let's see if I bring it really close. I think you can see it pretty good there. It knits up like this, and you may have seen this yarn, I think last year on the Crazy Sock Lady podcast. That's where I saw it and thought, ooh, I want to get my hands on some of that. It's such a pretty yarn. It's, yeah, Lang Super Socks, color 4-ply. It's the Chemical Elements collection. It's color 901.0345. I feel like it has a name, but I can't remember what it is. If I think of it when I'm editing, I'll look it up and put it at the bottom of the screen. That will give you a less blown out look at it, but it's kind of neonish colors, really bright, fun, almost rainbowish with a cool pattern. And I believe that Nancy from the Knit Sip Happy podcast also knit some socks from this within the last year or so. So that's going to be a fun one. Can't decide. I haven't decided if I'm going to keep them for myself, or I think my brother-in-law would wear something like that. He's the one man in my life that I can make kind of out there socks, and he will wear them happily. So going to have to think about that, but that is going to be a fun pair of socks to work on during June. So last episode, I'm going to just tuck this away. I'm going to try and do a little bit of cleanup as I go. It makes it much easier afterwards. What I also showed you last week, which I am keeping in this bag that I made for myself, I am doing this pair of socks. I just kitchenered the toe this morning. I finished it. I think I finished this one in the car on the way home from the cabin. That's where we were on the long weekend. And I just kitchenered this morning and cast on the second sock. So this is yarn from Rose Hill Yarns. Let me just see if I've got my labels here. I'm sure I do. Yeah. Another Canadian challenges. You probably can't read that anyway. It's Rose Hill Yarns. It's their fingering weight yarn. It's 100 grams, 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon, and there's 463 yards. This colorway is called Chickadee Trail. And I was inspired to cast this sock on one Sunday morning after I heard the chickadee calling. And I just came in here, tracked it down, cast it on, just because. And I've heard them and seen them since. So you can see I've done another German short row heel here. I just used some leftover Regia yarn for it. This is the for Fadig. Oh, this is not good. For Fadig color. A lot of glare. I may end up having to close that blind. I'll see. It's the denim black colorway, which is color number 1933, and I have probably just enough left to do the second sock. So as I mentioned, there's the yarn in the ball, and I cast it on, did 2 rows of ribbing. So again, it's a 64 stitch top down plain vanilla sock, 2x2 rib, and a rounded toe. My pretty standard sock, plain vanilla sock. When I do a short row heel or an afterthought heel, I will work 8 inches in the leg before I do the heel. When I do a heel flap and gusset, I do generally 7 inches. But yes, I love how the gray yarn looks on this sock. I think it's just the perfect match for it. All right, so that's all tidied up. And then I have one more pair of socks. This pair I'm making for my husband. So I'm just looking at the light, and it's okay. We're just gonna go with it as long as we can. It's knit from another Regia yarn. It's the jeans style color. Oh, sorry. Jean style color. Don't know if you can see that or not. It's color 4041 and the colorway is Sky. I am doing another pair of plain vanilla socks. This time I'm using 68 stitches and I thought I just dropped something. 68 stitches on a 2mm needle. I did a heel flap and gusset for this pair. Maybe if I put it here. Oh my goodness, that sun is just in the wrong spot. I do think it's a really nice color and I like the way that it's knit up, but they're not very exciting. And as I mentioned last episode, I decided to work on these during the NHL playoffs because our Vancouver Canucks had made it to the playoffs this year, which is not an every year occasion. And so I got plenty of knitting done. I finished one sock and have worked my way a good way down the leg of the second. But unfortunately, on Monday, the Vancouver Canucks were eliminated by the Edmonton Oilers in the second round of the playoffs. And so I'm not going to be watching hockey anymore. After that, after they were out, I don't really care who wins. Except I would like Edmonton just because they're a Canadian team. But, so this is now, I'm going to have to invent another excuse to work on these, another occasion where I don't really have to pay any attention, where I've got something else to keep my interest. So maybe this will become a, Friday night, appy night, or happy hour kind of sock where we sit and chat. And I guess that would be fitting for me to work on his socks while we spend the evening together. So that's probably what will happen with these. I was teasing him that they may not get finished for years, depends on if the Canucks get back in the playoffs. But that doesn't seem very fair. So I will continue to work on them, and maybe I'll finish them up in time for our anniversary, which is at the end of July. We'll see. All right. I have one more work in progress, which I have been enjoying so much. I decided that besides taking those socks to work on in the car and then while watching the hockey game at my mom's, when we went up to the cabin, I decided to take something else to work on while we were actually at the cabin, and that is my blanket of cheer. So to refresh your memory, I am knitting this blanket from all Fiber Nymph Dye Works yarns. I am using the bounce base for the solid or semi-solid squares, and I am doing the self-striping squares out of leftovers, and they're either in the bounce base, which is, I think it's an 80-20 superwash merino nylon base, or the BFL Mountain Tweed BFL, or the Bedazzled, which is the one that has some metallic in it, Stellina. And then I'm doing the borders in just plain vanilla bounce base. So what I've done is I've either used some minis that I already had on hand, or leftovers from minis that I had on hand out of the bounce base, or last year, or no, not last year, 2022, I got Fiber Nymph Dye Works Art of Contrast, the Art of Contrast Holiday Countdown Collection, and it came with 24 mini skeins. So I've been using those and any other mini skeins or leftovers of mini skeins that I've had from her yarn for these sections, and then leftovers of all my self-striping skeins. In some cases, I have or I will. I don't know if I've done it yet, but in some cases I will take off a portion of a new skein and then tuck the rest of the skein away to be knit into socks and just take some of the yarn, because I do have plans for some skeins that I haven't knit with yet. But these are so fun. My jumping off point was the Stitch in Time blanket by Kay Jones. Yes, I'm pretty sure it's Kay Jones of the Bakery Bears. But in the end, it really doesn't look anything like it. But I used her cast on number for the mitered squares and then kind of followed the general idea for the border from hers. Everything else I've kind of done myself. Her blanket has 9 miter squares in one big square, and you do 12 of them. The idea was 1 for each month. Whereas you can see there's only 4 in here, and how I've picked them up and put them together is different. And then on my squares, I am slipping the first stitch with the yarn in front, bringing it to the back and knitting across, and that's giving a nice edge to pick up the stitches in, both when I'm, just for when I'm doing the outside border. Because when I'm picking up stitches here, what I'm doing is I'm knitting the semi-solid or solid ones first, and then I pick up along the edge on one side, work out to here, and then I do it on the other side. So I'm starting to get quite a collection of completely finished blanket squares. I've fallen behind. I had fallen behind on adding the borders, because that's less exciting than knitting the self-striping ones. But I've sort of got a policy now, and what I'm doing is for every new square that I knit, I'm working the border on it plus the border on one of my, pardon me, older ones. So I'm down to 2, 4, 5 older ones that need, or maybe 6. One just slipped. Nope, 2, 4, 5. Yeah. I only have 5 older ones that need borders. Give you a quick flash of them. I think this was my very first one that I did, was that square. It'll probably be one of the last to get a border. What I love about it is, see, I've used the same self-striping yarn for both this square and this one, but by reversing the order or using different parts of the skein, they can look completely different. Plus they get put with a different semi-solid, and then there's that one. So I worked on some new squares, and I worked on doing the borders on some. So I think these 2 I put the borders on. That one there, and that one there. And then I'll show you all my new ones. I know I have shown, I'm not going to go through my whole stack, but I have shown these in past episodes. I started this back, would have been last January, I think. And then this past holiday season, December into January, I worked up all of the minis from the previous year's holiday collection into mitered squares. And now I'm in the process of adding the self-striping yarns. So, a little bit of a mess here. Let me see what I can do. Show you. A lovely knitting friend gave me this bag, and it's like the perfect bag for this project, because I just keep the things I'm working on at that time in here. So it's great for portability. Oh, I am making a mess. Oh boy. Okay. So this is one of my new ones that I knit up and put the border on. This is, I think, this might be my favorite block or square that I've done. I just love it. Love it, love it, love it. This is the, I think, Summer Fairy colorway, and then like a nice jade green. So as you can see, I did the full square plus added the border. And then I have, since I did this one, this mini skein was just one that I had. It wasn't part of the holiday countdown collection, but I had used, this is the Galaxy Cocktail colorway, and I had used some of that mini skein for the heel on those socks. So I thought I would use that yarn for the square as well. And then this is also Summer Fairy with this dark purple. And then I am currently working the border on this bright, bright square. This is also Galaxy Cocktail. So you can see I picked up the purple and this light green and then the lime green, and then that matches that lime green mini. So I've picked up from for the border on that one, and I've done one round of purl. So that'll look cool once it's all done up. And then the I'm holding this. This is done on circular needles. I'm holding the other straight needle that I'm using for the square that's in progress, and that is from my blue Morpho yarn from the second edition of the Lepidoptera Club. I recently knit socks out of this yarn, and so I am using yarn from one of the minis. This is the Ventral Brown colorway. So that's my blue Morpho self-striping yarn to go with it. And then, so that's in progress. And then I have, came with two minis, and so I'm wondering how much further I can lean back in my chair. I won't be in the sun. So this is the second mini that it came with, and then I will do the self-striping in the blue Morpho colorway also. But this time it will have the light gray in it, and then probably the dark brown. So just the way the colors are spaced, I can't get all three, well, it's there's 4 colors in it, but of course the bright turquoise is the main color, and that's the larger stripes. And so because of the size of the mitered square, I can only get 2 of the contrasting colors in of the stripes. So one has the one I'm working on now has the darkest brown and the chocolate brown, and then I think the other one is going to have the light gray and the dark brown. And I think what I'll do is pick up the light gray along the edge of this square so it'll stand out. So yeah, just loving this. Every time I work on this and then it gets put aside, I wonder why I put it aside, because I adore this project. It's just, there's something so rhythmic and meditative about knitting all that garter stitch. And I love when I start adding in the self-striping yarns. I love seeing how they play against the semi-solid mitered squares and see which part of the stripes come up. Sometimes I manipulate it. I often manipulate which colors are going to be showing up in the skein. I definitely do yarn management to make the most of them, but I just love this project. I laid it out, I think it was yesterday. I can't remember how many I had, pardon me, that were all completed. But I think when I laid all of them out, I think I had about 20 between the fully completed and the not fully completed. And yeah, I love it. Okay, let's move on to cross stitch, and I'm not sure how well this is going to show up. I may need to close that blind so that you are able to see this up close. So I'm continuing to work on my summer bell pull. I'm on the U like I was last episode, but I've added more, like completed the flowers and the leaves up here. I just need to do the back stitch for the vines. And the basket's just about finished. The strawberries, I think, except for a couple little bits of leaf, are done. And there's a trowel that is in here that's partially done now. I think if I bring this right up to the camera, it's probably gonna blow out. Oh, we might be okay. I think we're okay. I think we're okay. Can you see this bee? How cute is that? I made sure I finished it and back stitched it so that you could see it. This continues also to be a really enjoyable project. My aim is to work on it most weekdays in the afternoon, but in truth, usually I'm only managed to do that 2 or 3 times a week. But I enjoy it when I can get to it. All right, spinning. I made some more yarn. And this is also from Useful Creations, one of the BFL braids that I got from her. I will put a picture here of the braid before I spun it, and then also a photo of the bobbins after I had spun them, spun the singles. And then I did a 2-ply. So what I did is I took the braid, divided it into 3 lengths like I did before, and I split each length into 8. Is that right? Yes, I think 8. And then what I did is I spun the first 2 bobbins from like one end of the braid through to the other end. It was divided into 3, but I started with like number 1, number 2, number 3, so it all was spun in one long section. And then I did that, I guess I did that twice through for each bobbin. Yes, so then my first 2 bobbins had like 2 repeats, I guess you would say, of the whole braid, the way it was dyed. And then for my 3rd and 4th bobbin, I did it from the opposite end. So my idea was that when they were plied together, I would be plying, if this is the braid, this end, okay, if these are the 2 braids, and they're like, or this is the one, this is not making sense, is it? I basically plied them so the opposite ends were plying against each other. So when I was plying, the beginning of the braid was being plied together with the end of the braid, like the colors. I'm not explaining it very well, and I apologize. But I could not believe when I started spinning this, how much finer that I was spinning it. I don't have my early attempts in here, but I mean, my yarn was like much thinner. Now it is overspun, I know that, but I couldn't believe how thin. Let's see if I could just take these 2 plies apart. Like, oh, this is horrible. Like, look how thin that is. And definitely more consistent, a lot less. I mean, there is still some thick and thin, of course. There's going to be, but I was so pleased with how much thinner I was doing it, more consistent. Now it has been, it's actually hanging pretty straight. When I was plying it, I only let it sit, the last one sit overnight, and I did it over a course of a few days. It was definitely more twisted, and I think that since I've washed it and it's been just hanging off a hanger for the last week, I guess, it's definitely not as twisty as it was. Because when I had this hanging, the braid was kind of twisted like that, which tells you there's some twist in it. But yeah, that's, so I ended up with 2, plus then I 2-plied the rest of what was left on one bobbin. You can see that's twisting a little bit. Now I thought, oh, I think if I were to wind it off the bobbin into a cake of yarn, this is before I had plied it, I thought I could then like ply together from each end. I did it, but it was kind of a nightmare. And I thought also I'm going to channel Nancy from Knit Sip Happy again, because she has a trick where she puts a button. She has each end going through the holes of a button, and it keeps them from twisting around each other, the two ends. And that would have been helpful. But still, like, you know, it's decent yarn. So I have no idea how much meterage I have, or yardage, because I don't have anything to measure it. But yeah, I'm pretty darn pleased with myself for my third real attempt. Like my third attempt. I'm quite pleased with it. It's definitely a lot finer than my second attempt, and more even, and really pretty, because I don't know, with the lighting, if you can see, it's all these really pretty blues and purples. And it made me think, I was spinning this while during the time that the Northern Lights were over, parts of North America. I did not see them in person, but I did have one of my sisters, after the hockey game, went and drove around, and she did find a spot here where I live that she could view them, and had a really nice picture. But that's what kind of made me think of it. There's some green in here too. Green and blue and purple. Again, lighting, kind of sucking, so you can't see it as well. And then these are just from tying it up. And what I try and remember is I'll use a different number, and I try and do like, okay, this is the first one I applied, this is the second one I applied, but I got kind of mixed up. What I was doing with plying is I plied the first, I think I applied the first bobbin with the third bobbin, and the second with the fourth. Or I might have done first and fourth. Yeah, I think I did first and fourth, second and third together. Because I thought, well, depending, like, first and fourth are quite far apart, where the second and the third are probably more consistent. So that's what I did. All right, on to acquisitions. I didn't purchase anything. Well, I'm lying. I did purchase something. I just won't get it till closer to December. Just hang on a second. I did not tell you before, but I ordered an Advent yarn set from a Canadian, I think a Vancouver dyer. I can't remember any of the details. I did that probably a month ago, and it's an Agatha Christie or Miss Marple. I think it's a Miss Marple themed. Yeah, Miss Marple, I think. Miss Marple themed Advent set. I thought that would just be perfect, being an Agatha Christie fan and all that. But then I was watching Lisa from Fiber Nymph Dye Works. She has her her podcast, and she was talking about her holiday sets, and they, I think the last day to order, I'll put it at the bottom of the screen. I think it's either June 1st or June 30th. I can't remember. I want to say June 1st. And I hadn't planned to get a yarn one this year because I'm still working on her yarn advent set from a couple of years ago. But dawned on me, would be really neat now that I'm spinning to order the fiber version. So that's what I did. So I'm going to have a yarn advent to open and then a fiber one. And so I'm looking forward to that. So I did place an order for that the other day. But other than that, I haven't purchased any yarn or anything. But I did receive this book from my daughter for Mother's Day. It's called Spinning for Softness and Speed by Paula Simmons. And it was actually published by the local used bookstore where my daughter works, called The Bookman here in Chilliwack, BC. And I thought maybe this person was local, but just looking into it, it sounds like she lives in Washington State, which is only, just below us, and actually the southern border of our city, which isn't part of the city part, but like the actual, what's deemed to be Chilliwack, is actually the southern boundary is the U.S. border with Washington State. So it makes sense that she, could do it. But she apparently is known for other things. It says that she's well known in the weaving world, a spinner, weaver, and sheep raiser. She's the author of Raising Sheep the Modern Way, Spinning and Weaving with Wool, and The Hand Spinner's Guide to Selling. And then she's also written numerous articles and 3 cookbooks. So I hadn't heard of her myself. This was published back in 1982, but this is a new copy. And it's actually, this method, the spinning for softness and speed, she spins more or less with one hand instead of like what I've been doing is like, as you're holding the fiber, I've been kind of doing this with my hand. So this holds it steady, and then you're doing this. And she has you, it looks like holding with your left hand if you normally do this with your right hand, and like drawing back and letting it feed into the orifice. I don't know how it works. You need something like, it sounds like fairly fluffy, batting, like a bat more than a braid. I don't know. I just sort of read it over. But it'll be interesting to see if it's something I can accomplish and see what happens. I think the idea is that it puts less twist so that your yarn is softer, more bouncy. So we'll see. Anyway, I gave that just a quick read, and we'll absorb the knowledge. It's been continues to be a really fun journey, this whole spinning thing, and I love learning new things and trying new things. All right, life. So yeah, it's been a good couple of weeks, as I mentioned. I finally got out to the gardens. The gardens in the backyard. I've got some planters, bought some ready-made planters, and also then bought some bedding plants for the gardens near the deck, what I call my hummingbird, bee, and butterfly gardens. So those are planted. They have some perennials, but I always add in some annuals there. And my front gardens are kind of a mess. There's a lot of weeds. There's also an area where I had snapdragons last year, and I left them to seed so that the birds would have the seeds, but a lot of them self-seeded. So I'm going to dig a bunch of those up and move them to one section of our backyard where we have like a hydrangea tree. I know hydrangeas are bushes, but this one is pruned to have like a stem and then like a full thing of flowers on top. And that little garden, and usually the little part underneath it, it's just a little corner by the shed. I never put anything under it, but I think if I were to transplant these snapdragons, and then if they just kept reseeding every year, that would just be a nice colorful corner. So that's what I'm going to do there. And I need to get out and weed the front yard, and I have some containers out there I want to plant, and figure out what I'm going to do with the rest. So we've just had such unpredictable weather. You know, we go from like pouring rain on Tuesday to, you know, it's turned out to be, it's overcast. Well, it's a mix of sun and cloud today, but much, much warmer than it was 2 days ago. We also had our Victoria Day long weekend, and as I mentioned, we went up to the cabin, and we stayed overnight at my mom's Thursday night because, well, A, to watch the hockey game, and B, nothing was ready to go out at the cabins, and rather than head out there and it's cold and dark and no water going, we just stayed in my mom's house, at my mom's house in town. She lives about 10 miles or 17 kilometers from the cabins. So we went out Friday morning, and one of my cousins and his friend had come up also Thursday night, and we get out there and there are snowflakes starting to fall. Actually, we had driven, when we drove up Thursday night, we were just coming into town, well, not just coming into town, but a little bit before town, we went through this huge downpour, like huge, hard, pounding downpour. And then just as we were driving into town, there was this beautiful rainbow. So I'm going to put a picture up of that rainbow. And then we immediately drove out to the cabins to drop off our groceries, because I didn't think my mom would have enough room in her fridge and freezer for the food we'd brought up. So as we were coming back to town, we could just see it. This rainbow was still there, but more diffused. And it was beautiful, but crazy. The next morning, it's, you know, just little teeny tiny snowflakes, but it was snow. We have had one year, it was Canada Day weekend. Canada Day is July 1st, and we had snow up there, and real snow that stuck to the ground. We had a picture of whoever was up there standing at the gate in this snow on Canada Day weekend. But this time it didn't stick or anything, but it seriously. So the weekend itself was a whole mix of weather. Had the snow, we had rain, we had hail. And then the morning we left, Monday morning, it looked like it was going to be a really nice day, of course. But after some trial and error, we got the water going by, I think that was Saturday. We worked on it on Friday. We're having trouble. They were trying to troubleshoot it. At some point, I walked away from it because I was doing more observing than anything. I figured, you know, too many cooks. So by Saturday, we did have water running, thankfully, and had a good weekend. Our older son and his wife, Matt and Steph, they came up Friday after work and also left Sunday. So it was just, there was 5 of us staying in the cabin, us 2, Matt and Steph, and then my mom, and then my cousin and his friend left Saturday. So anyway, we had a great weekend. We went into town to my mom's on Saturday to have dinner and watch the hockey game. Normally, once we're up there, we're just out at the cabin, but we had to watch the hockey game. And then there was a game 7, so we watched that Monday night when we got home. Just looking at my notes here. So it was Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day, belated Mother's Day to everyone. I know it's the Canada and the US, and I know the UK is a different time. I don't know if it was Mother's Day in Australia or New Zealand too. In any case, belated Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers. And then I know Memorial Day weekend is coming up this weekend for the United States. And so I hope everyone has a great Memorial Day weekend. And if you were in Canada, I hope you had a great Victoria Day weekend. Ours was, for the most part, very enjoyable. All right, and other than that, we've just been prepping for our upcoming trip. We are going to Paris and Amsterdam, leaving June 12th and returning the 22nd. So we've booked a few things. We're going to be overlapping with our younger son, Colin, and his girlfriend, Bronwyn, for the last 2 nights of our trip in Amsterdam. And so we're going to be doing an evening canal cruise. And then there's this big, I don't know if it's, I can't remember if it's the biggest windmill or the oldest windmill in Amsterdam, or in, I don't even know if it's in Holland. Anyway, we're going to walk to this windmill. You can't go in it, but there's a brewery right beside it. So we're going to do that one day. Well, when I say one day, we're only there overlapping 2 nights with them. So we'll do the canal cruise the first night. The next day we will do the windmill. And then we're going to the Van Gogh Museum that night. And other than that, plans are pretty loose with them and with us too. I know I'm going to visit Stephen and Penelope's yarn shop, and then Linda from For the Fun of Knit told me about another yarn shop which isn't too far from there, so I'm going to do that. Definitely visiting a yarn shop in Paris. And we're going to the Moulin Rouge for the show one night, and then I'm trying to get tickets for the Eiffel Tower. Normally they sell them 60 days in advance, but because of the Olympics coming up, they're shortening that time period. And so we get there the 13th, and they're only available up to the 14th, I think. And they're sold out. So we'll have to wait, and hopefully they'll come available before we leave. Otherwise, we're just going to have to go to the ticket office and take our chances on getting them. We want to go to the very top, because when we were there before, we were only able to get to the 2nd floor. And my dad had told me, when you go, you have to go to the top, and we didn't. And it's always been in the back of my mind that if we ever were to go back, we have to go to the very top of the Eiffel Tower. So crossing fingers and toes that does indeed happen. All right, something good. If you've been watching for a while, you know I love my birds. I'm not like a crazy bird watcher or anything. I don't go out bird watching, but I do enjoy having the feeders and seeing what shows up. And usually it's just the usual suspects. But on Mother's Day, our younger son, Colin, had come to visit, where it was pretty nice out, so we were sitting outside, and this bird on the feeder caught my eye because it was a bright blue, kind of sort of like that blue, and had some like a tan, like kind of a bright, there's a word I'm trying to think of, and I can't think of the word to describe the color. Trying to look to see if there's anything handy that is, anyway, the kind of a buffy, kind of a reddy brown almost. And my first thought was, is that a bluebird? And I've seen the mountain bluebirds, which are kind of the same color, up near the cabin before, and more in the interior of BC. But I started looking, and it turned out it's a lazuli bunting, which must be coming through here migrating, because they normally, they are in BC, but more of the south central part of BC. So we saw it. My husband had grabbed, and my son had both grabbed pictures. And then I realized I had my phone right beside me. I thought it was inside. And then I was able to get a photo myself. And then, because it did come back. And then it came back the next day and the next day. And I was able to get a video of it one of those times. I can't remember which day it was. And as I was taking the video, you know, you're looking through, actually, I was taking it on my actual like camera, not my phone. And, you know, I'm focusing in on it and trying to hold it steady because I had it zoomed way in. And I saw like some movement sort of in the periphery, and then something came up and they both flew away. But what I realized when I watched it back is there was a second one, and this is a male. So I'm going to put at the end of the episode, I'll just put the video so you can see it for yourself. It's a beautiful bird. And then we were away for the weekend, the long weekend. But then I saw it the day before yesterday also. So whether it's going to hang around for a while or whether it's going to move on, I don't know. But I've now seen it on for 4 different days. Some of them on more than one occasion on that day. So that's really cool. We do not have that many blue birds in my area. We have the Steller's jay, which is mostly black but has some kind of like a royal blue on it. And then there's some swallows that have some blue, and then we do have bluebirds, but don't see them often. So just to see a blue bird in itself is very unique and just yeah, super cool. All right, that brings us to the end of this episode. So what time is it? It's 7:05, so that's not so bad. I have some leftovers. I'm going to go heat up for dinner, and then I'll start working on editing this, but chances are it won't be up until tomorrow because I still have to do the show notes online. Speaking of which, you can find show notes on YouTube by, they're below the video. If you look where the description is, you'll see something that says more. Click on more. It expands the description box. There you'll find links to my Ravelry, I think my Ravelry profile, definitely the Ravelry group, and then links to all of my projects that I talk about, any stores that I talk about, I link most things. And if you ever have any questions about them, feel free to ask me either on in a YouTube comment or via private message on Ravelry or in the Ravelry group. And the videos I also put on the blog with show notes, and then also in the Ravelry group with show notes. So lots of ways to watch, lots of ways to find the information, but definitely reach out. I am not great about always keeping up with the comments in the Ravelry group, but I'm pretty good most of the time about Ravelry private messages, although there's somebody I owe a message to, a reply to, and with YouTube comments. So I do get back to you eventually, or at least I do my best to. But yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any questions or comments or anything. And when you do, I really appreciate it. So thank you for that interaction. I do enjoy it, even though I'm not always good about the giving back part. Besides the episode, of course, that's my biggest opportunity to chat to all of you. Anyway, I'm just running on now. So thank you so much for joining me today. And again, thanks so much for your interaction via comments and participation in the make-alongs. And I hope you have a good couple of weeks. It is my intention to record once more before I go away. That's if everything goes to plan. So take care until then, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.